if you're somebody that's been around AA for a while and you're kind of realizing that you're not really experiencing what some of these folks are talking about, send me an email. We'll get you hooked up with somebody that can either sponsor you or take you through the steps if you've already, got a sponsor or whatever it is. Just send me an email and we'll help you out best we can. I already covered that. Okay.
Nicely done, Chad. I think we should start with the first tradition. Before we begin our study of the big book, we're going to review the first tradition in its long and short form. This is on page 562. If you have a fourth edition big book, Steve's going to read the first tradition, long form, short form.
Thanks, Charlie. My name is Stephen. I'm an alcoholic. Tradition 1 states the short form: our common welfare should come first. Personal recovery depends upon AA unity. Our AA experience has taught us that each member of Alcoholics Anonymous is but a small part of a great whole. AA must continue to live, or most of us will surely die. Hence, our common welfare comes first, but individual welfare follows close afterward. Thanks.
Thanks, Steve. In the spirit of the 12 traditions, our group conscience has elected to use this Big Book study guide to help us stay focused on our study of the AA Big Book. There are one or more questions for darn near every sentence in the basic text. The chairperson will read a question, and then a member will read the related sentence. It's okay to comment more than once in here, but please stay focused on the text at hand. The biggest difference between this Big Book study and a lot of other Big Book studies is there's some really great Big Book studies out there where they read a page or a chapter, people talk about their experience with it, and those are great meetings, but that's not what we're trying to do here. At this meeting, we're looking at it, and the way we like to say it is, if our founders found a message they felt important enough to put into a book form, what information did they find important to put in there, and in what order? So we're looking more at what are our founders saying? Why are we talking about this? Why are we talking it now? And trying to get an idea of the flow of the program, have that experience, carry that message, and it's just been great. Chad, would you tell them how to share?
Select participants at the bottom of your screen, select more, and then select raise your hand. You'll have a little blue hand go up by your face. And then we'll call on people in order. We'll do the best we can. Sometimes it's a little sketchy, but we do our best. Please be patient and wait to be called on before sharing. And then last thing, we've got a 1936 Webster's Dictionary. Ashley's got one. Charlie's got one. So if there's a word that we're reading and you want to know what it means or what it meant the time that they were writing the book, send it to one of us in a chat and we'll look it up. And let's try to limit the words that we define to what's in the reading. All right, Charlie.
Okay. Tonight we're starting over. We're starting usually at our room meeting, we start with the preface and the foreword, but we thought we'd make it a little more exciting for the group since we're starting over on Wednesday. I can't tell you how thrilled I am to see 450 people on here. I thought, oh my God, when we move to Wednesday, we're going to lose everybody. But let's get this thing going. We're going to start at the beginning of the doctor's opinion. And there's a blue page. If you have one of our study guides, before we start a chapter, there's what we call a blue page, which is a kind of a summary of what we're about to do. Chad, would you read the blue page for the doctor's opinion, please?
Okay, it says the doctor's opinion was written by William D. Silkworth, MD. To many recovered alcoholics, this section of the Big Book is considered to be the most important as it describes alcoholism in terms that make sense to the real alcoholic. From this description, the alcoholic learns the exact nature of the disease of alcoholism and how hopeless this condition of mind and body seems to be. We are told why we are unable to control the amount we drink once we have taken the first few drinks. But more important, we are told why it is that we cannot manage our decision to not take the first drink once we have made a firm decision, pledge, vow, promise, etc., to never drink again. He also expresses his belief, based on his observations, in the effectiveness of the program of Alcoholics Anonymous as a method of assuring the essential entire psychic change which he believed to be the only solution for the seemingly hopeless state of mind and body. Dr. Silkworth was trained in neurology and lost his practice as a result of the stock market crash of 1929. He met Charlie Towns, who was in search of a physician to direct his hospital, Towns Hospital, which specialized in the treatment of alcoholics and drug addicts. Dr. Silkworth accepted the position for a stipend of $40 a week. His plans were to re-enter private practice when he could afford to do so, but the time never came. He devoted his entire career to a practice of helping alcoholics. Many thousands of alcoholics were directed to Alcoholics Anonymous because of his faith in our way of life. Without Dr. Silkworth's opinion of alcoholism, Alcoholics Anonymous would not have happened. It is only when we clearly understand a problem that we may find a solution. Bill W. understood the hopelessness of his alcoholism from Dr. Silkworth's opinion. Dr. Bob understood the hopelessness of his alcoholism after Bill W. explained Dr. Silkworth's opinion to him.
Good stuff.
Hang on. If an alcoholic really wants to stop drinking for good and all, he must fully concede to his innermost self that he has a hopeless condition of mind, body, and spirit. This is the first step in recovery, and the doctor's opinion gives us the knowledge necessary to surrender to that truth. Very simply, from this section of the Big Book, we learn why it is that the real alcoholic has a body that can never get enough alcohol and a mind that will not let the alcoholic leave it alone.
There's a note there about the forward, but it won't come up for most of us. But it says the forward of the fourth edition advanced the page numbers for the doctor's opinion by 2, and will be so noted. This is the only place in our study where we have to kind of make a difference between the third edition and the fourth edition. Okay, Chad, would you read the first paragraph? And Ashley, would you look up estimate and opinion? Chad, read that first paragraph, and we might as well read the letter.
Okay. The doctor's opinion. We of Alcoholics Anonymous believe that the reader will be interested in the medical estimate of the plan of recovery described in this book. Convincing testimony must surely come from medical men who have had experience with the sufferings of our members and have witnessed our return to health. A well-known doctor, chief physician at a nationally prominent hospital specializing in alcoholic and drug addiction, gave Alcoholics Anonymous this letter. To whom it may concern, I have specialized in the treatment of alcoholism for many years. In late 1934, I attended a patient who, though he had been a competent businessman of good earning capacity, was an alcoholic of a type I had come to regard as hopeless. In the course of his third treatment, he acquired certain ideas concerning a possible means of recovery. As part of his rehabilitation, he commenced to present his conceptions to other alcoholics, impressing upon them that they must do likewise with still others. This has become the basis of a rapidly growing fellowship of these men and their families. This man and over 100 others appear to have recovered. I personally know scores of cases who were of the type with whom other methods had failed completely. These facts appear to be of extreme medical importance. Because of the extraordinary possibilities of rapid growth inherent in this group, they may mark a new epoch. Is that how you say that?
Yep.
They may mark a new epoch in the annals of alcoholism. These men may well have a remedy for thousands of such situations. You may rely absolutely on anything they say about themselves. Very truly yours, William D. Silkworth, MD.
What do we of Alcoholics Anonymous believe about this book?
We of Alcoholics Anonymous believe that the reader will be interested in the medical estimate of the plan of recovery described in this book.
Ashley, did you look up estimate?
I did. Estimate is to fix roughly or to calculate approximately as the worth, size, or cost. To form an opinion of or gauge.
What's the source of the convincing testimony in this book?
Convincing testimony must surely come from medical men who have had experience with the sufferings of our members and have witnessed our return to health.
Who gave Alcoholics Anonymous this opinion of alcoholism?
A well-known doctor, chief physician at a nationally prominent hospital specializing in alcoholic and drug addiction, gave Alcoholics Anonymous this letter.
What was his specialty?
To whom it may concern, I have specialized in the treatment of alcoholism for many years.
How did Silkworth describe the patient he attended in 1934?
In late 1934, I attended a patient who, he had been a competent businessman of good earning capacity, was an alcoholic of a type I had come to regard as hopeless.
Not a word you want your doctor used. What happened during Bill's third course of treatment?
In the course of his third treatment, he acquired certain ideas concerning a possible means of recovery.
It says Bill didn't meet Dr. Silkworth his first trip to Towns Hospital. His second visit was his first meeting with the good doctor. As part of it, and we're going to have comments at the end of this, so there'll be a chance for people to talk. As part of Bill's recovery, what did he try to impress upon other alcoholics?
Is it in the course?
Yes.
In the course of his third treatment, he acquired certain ideas concerning a possible means of recovery.
That wasn't it, it was the next one.
As part of his rehabilitation, he commenced to present his conceptions to other alcoholics, impressing upon them that they must do likewise with still others.
And we've all heard that there's no must in AA, and that's the very first one. His work was the basis for what?
This has become the basis of a rapidly growing fellowship of these men and their families.
How many did Silkworth say had recovered by 1939?
This man and over 100 others appear to have recovered.
How many did Silkworth know from personal experience?
I personally know scores of cases who were of the type with whom other methods had failed completely.
There's an interesting comment here. It says in the original draft of the Big Book, Dr. Silkworth said, I personally know of 30 of these cases who were of the type with whom other methods had failed completely. The remarkable thing about that is he was willing to stake his reputation on those 30 cases that he had seen recover. The other 60 plus recovered were in Akron and Cleveland. Why do these facts seem to be of extreme medical importance?
These facts appear to be of extreme medical importance because of the extraordinary possibilities of rapid growth inherent in this group. Let me read that again. These facts appear to be of extreme medical importance. Because of the extraordinary possibilities of rapid growth inherent in this group, they may mark a new epoch in the annals of alcoholism.
Did Silkworth believe this program had worked for many others?
These men may well have a remedy for thousands of such situations.
Did Silkworth have complete confidence in recovered alcoholics?
You may rely absolutely on anything they say about themselves.
This is truly a remarkable comment from a doctor who believed in Bill and his dedication to our program of recovery. Dr. Silkworth put his reputation on the line for alcoholics like us. This is one instance where we see the hand of faith at work. Okay, any comments on what we read so far?
Okay, Raquel, you're first. Raquel, you get the first comment at the first Wednesday night meeting of Primary Purpose Group Online.
That's very good because I'm a very big fan. I'm calling from the train going home, so I'm so glad to be in the meeting with you guys. So thank you. My comment is so small. It's just like I have talked to many doctors, and I love how they talk even later on in the book about the psychiatrists and the psychologists that we don't usually tell them the truth. And one doctor, I spoke to them, and he said one time, like, you know, alcoholics are liars by nature. And I know that to be true. So I found that amazing that this doctor said, you may rely absolutely on anything they say about themselves, and how the recovered alcoholic, the honesty is there, you know, so I like that. Thanks.
Nice.
Oh, thank you.
can I stick something in there real quick?
Yes, please do.
Katie, alcoholic. I also love that in the third paragraph down in his letter, it says in the course of his treatment acquired certain ideas concerning a possible means of recovery. As part of his rehabilitation, he commenced to present his concepts to other alcoholics, impressing upon them that they must do this likewise with still others. We're already talking about, we call it sponsorship today. I know the book doesn't use the term, but it seems in today's day and age, sponsorship has become optional. And that is where they push it and they push it and they push it. And I think we get lost in the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous that if nobody asks, that I'm not sponsoring. And this is why, as we go more and more through this, you'll begin to see that it's constantly brought back to carrying the message. So I'm so excited. So many of you guys are getting ready to sit down and just, get a deeper understanding of carrying the message, because it's okay not to understand how to carry the message. I get it. I mean, everybody started somewhere. So I just wanted to throw that out there. Thanks, Chad.
Good stuff.
Katie?
I have two definitions real quick. Ashley, alcoholic. We have conception, the power, function, or process informing ideas, abstract, universal ideas. And then testimony is a solemn declaration or affirmation made to establish some fact. And again, a declaration.
You might as well give us epic and annals. Any other comments while she's looking that up? Who's
Yeah.
next?
I'm unmuting Chip.
Hi, I'm Chip. I'm alcoholic.
All right, Chip.
On this, I've been saying this for years. I'm not trying to get political, but it says it's a doctor's opinion. It doesn't say the doctor's statement of the truth. And I think nowadays, the disease has progressed. It's almost like, we just automatically assume the doctors know what they're talking about. And because science poses as God sometimes, it's not, but it's not intelligence per se. It's just a method of knowing. It really doesn't know everything. It's not God. And I hope I'm not putting too much in here about the God thing, but that paragraph that Katie referenced is pointing to the solution. And from my understanding and experience with God, he doesn't suffer from the disease of alcoholism. He doesn't suffer lack or depravity or any of that stuff. And so the solution is to get with his grand plan design, and why he's not affected by it. And it points to solution. If we start doing what he wants us to do, we don't get affected by it. It's not about my little plans and designs. It's about God's grand plan design. He wants us all to be happy, joyous, and free. So we naturally want to all help each other out. We want to pass this on. But you can't pass what you don't have on. And so we need to get a relationship down so we don't get. The only way to, if I ignore the disease, it announces itself. If I condone it, it gives it license to use me and hurt people around me. And if I resist it, I'll become an agent of it. The way to deny its effects is to face it by the grace of God. Say, okay, God, what do you want me to be? What do you want me to do? And that's why he wants us. He's got a solution for us. And if we get with that solution, we can deny. We don't have to let the disease kill us and stuff. But anyway, thanks for sharing.
Can I throw something there? Opinion in the dictionary says a belief or judgment, the estimation of the value or importance of a thing. So just like you can get a legal opinion from a lawyer that knows what he's talking about, I mean, I don't think they mean like when the Big Lebowski goes, well, that's like your opinion, man. I mean, it's more like somebody that knows what they're talking about saying, this is, the value of this thing. The opinion's right here in the dictionary, 3 words up from opiomania, which is a morbid craving for opium. I thought that was a good one too.
Hey, thanks, dude. Barry, you're up.
Hey, I'm Barry. I'm an alcoholic. And grateful to be here. And I love this meeting. And as some of y'all that sit next to me know, I'm a huge fan of these blue pages at the start of the chapter. I just want to do a real quick reflection here. I love the fact that it's here in the doctor's opinion, the blue page estimating that we first hear this phrase, innermost self in terms of what it is that we have to be willing to be honest with ourselves about this desire, about how it is that, you know, this doctor who it informs us is a trained neurologist. He's not shying away from the desire to call this a psychic change. He's the first one sitting there front and center with the idea about how total we have to change in this. And also, I love this part, this little clause at the end of the blue, in which it's saying, very simply from this section of the big book, we learn that it is the real alcoholic has a body that can never get enough alcohol and a mind that will not let the alcoholic leave it alone. I know that a lot of times we quote the very first page of We Agnostics, its concept about if you cannot quit entirely or if you have no control about it. But this part here on the blue page, I think that that is a very succinct and simple definition of what alcoholism is. I acknowledge it's defining it by the symptomology rather than cause or condition, but I really love that. Thanks.
Thanks, Barry. That's good stuff. I like that definition too. Okay, let's hear from Alvin. There you go. Now you're unmuted.
Alvin Taylor, alcoholic. What the founders are wanting to smash home upon the reader here, you know, the people who are reading this book of Alcoholics Anonymous. First of all, the doctor qualifies himself. You know, he tells us who he is. He's not just working at some, you know, local junkyard place down there. I mean, he's working at a prominent hospital. You know, he's working at a place where he's specializing in alcohol and addiction. So they're trying to get us to understand that, because we know there's going to be a lot of opinions, okay? There's going to be there's going to be lawyers' opinions and milkman opinions, but here's the doctor's opinion. And I mean, really, the only opinion that I care about being when I'm sick is I want to hear the doctor's opinion. That's the opinion that I want to hear. And so they're getting us to try to really understand that this guy who's specializing in alcoholism and has been doing it for years has something that he wants us to know. And he's got an experience. And I heard someone say that it wasn't the doctor's opinion, but it was, he didn't say they didn't say that it was the doctor's truth, but it was the doctor's opinion. And, you know, I'd rather hear the doctor's opinion than someone who hasn't had an experience, you know, that I could rely on. And so they're trying to qualify and let us know that this doctor has had experience in dealing with alcoholics who had chronic problems, and that he's seen them return, you know, to health. And that if we follow this important information that they're getting ready to share for us, because they tell us it's of extreme medical importance, not just medical importance, extreme medical importance, you know, especially for alcoholics. You know, so that's what they want to get us to do. They want to get our attention right here, right at the beginning, to let us understand that there's been some growth inherent in this group. There's a new epic. It's a new angle of recovery here, understanding. So anyway, yeah, thank you for letting me share. It's a good one.
Thanks, Alvin. Thanks, Alvin. Ashley, do you have those videos?
Yes, I do. Okay, the first one, Epic. All right, so that definition is any event in time or an event marking the beginning of a relatively new development, a period of time characterized by a distinct development or memorial series of events.
Did you say that first one again?
Any event or time in event marking the beginning of a relatively new development. That's what I have.
Mine says a point of time from which succeeding years are reckoned.
Wow. You've got the best dictionary, Charlie.
That's a good one.
We've also got a request for credibility. Somebody will look that up. What about, did you get annals?
Yeah. A relation of events in chronological order by years. So historical records, chronicles, or history.
Okay. Next. Next up is Lil.
Thank you. Hi, everybody. My name. So, the things that jump out at me are, first off, where it says, from medical men who have had experience with the sufferings of our members. And in my experience, alcoholics suffer, and and later on it says of the type that is hopeless. And this book, what I have come to see in this book is alcoholics of this type, of my type, we suffer when we do not drink, and we suffer when we do drink. And the suffering that they're talking about isn't necessarily the circumstances that happen when we're drunk. Everyone who drinks a lot of the beverage alcohol will suffer the consequences. But alcoholics who have the disease of alcoholism suffer because it fills the empty spots hole in my soul. And many people say, oh, I have the isms. Yes, but alcohol solves the isms for alcoholics. And that's the problem. So the problem is the solution, and the solution is the problem, so to speak. And yeah, and it goes, I just want to say that chief physician at a nationally prominent hospital, he knew what he was talking about. At the time, he was the #1 guy in North America. And it's not just, you know, a GP. Anyway, that's really all I've got. There's lots of people on here. Thank you for asking me to share.
Thanks, Lil. Good stuff. All right, let's do Ray Shepard.
All right, let me get myself unmuted. There we go. Thanks, Chad. Thank you. I'm Ray Shepard. I'm a recovered alcoholic.
All right.
This is a phenomenal chapter. Probably one of my favorite chapters for many reasons. So if I go too long, Chad, just cut me off. Just tell me, shut up, Ray.
You got the rest of the meeting, Ray. It's all yours.
No, I'm not going to do that. The doctor's opinion. The doctor's not an alcoholic. He talks from his opinion based on his observations. The alcoholics, the authors that wrote this book, talk from their experience and the knowledge that they gained from their experience. So when we're bantering about the word truth, we're both speaking truth. If I have a patient coming to me and says, you know, doc, I hurt my shoulder, I can't move it, I can speculate as to what might be wrong with his shoulder. I can have an opinion based on that. I can take x-rays. I can do all kinds of other diagnostic tests. I can come up with an opinion as to how he might have heard it, but it was his experience as to how he actually heard it. So when we start talking about the doctor's opinion, he's going to give us his observations on these alcoholics. He's going to talk about the truth that he sees as to how they actually cannot stop drinking once they start drinking, and worse, how they start drinking on the way home from the hospital. So as we look at this, and we'll come to many places as we go through this, but I think one of the more important things in the letter that Silkworth writes, this man and over 100 others appear to have recovered. Here's a medical man who has pronounced these alcoholics recovered. It's the same thing that we read in the foreword of the first edition when the alcoholics who wrote this book said, we have recovered. Their experience is that they've recovered. Silkworth's observations is they've recovered. So as I look at what the doctor is saying, it's based on the truth that he sees in these patients. but more so as he's going to tell us that you can believe absolutely anything that they say. Now, let me ask you this question. As a hopeless drunk, no one believed what the hell I said. Now then, as a recovered alcoholic, I'm being told that they can believe anything that I say. Who would have thought? Who would have given credence to that? It's a as we put it into our own experience and our knowledge. Now with that, I'm just going to shut up here, Chad. Thanks.
Great job, Rick.
Good stuff, buddy. Okay, Margie.
Hi,
Okay, you're good.
Hi, I'm Margie. I'm an alcoholic. This is my first time speaking at this meeting. I'm so excited. I'm kind of nervous though, so the thing that stood out to me tonight in this reading was this part where it talks about the extraordinary possibilities of rapid growth inherent in this group. And the word inherent really jumped out at me, because inherent means that it's actually like an integral part of something or a characteristic. I don't know about anybody else's experiences drinking, but rapid growth was not really a big part of my experiences before I came into this program. And I feel like the doctor is almost making this as though it's the characteristics of the members of the group. But I kind of feel like it's not really a characteristic of that. It's a characteristic of having a higher power, of having a spiritual awakening, of having that epic, like, psychic shift that we have when we enter this program. And when he talks about it, what's also interesting, if you go further in the sentence, he says this may mark a new epoch in the annals of alcoholism. I think that epic shift, that psychic change in us, is really what does mark that new territory for recovering from alcoholism. And that's where we see success, right? Is that we really have to have that spiritual component, but not just that, also working with others, which I think has been pointed out that earlier in this letter, that he talks about how we have to work with others too, right? So I think that combination is really interesting, because already the doctor's opinion is calling that out. So, wow, I made it. I shared for my first time. So thanks, guys. I'm so happy to be here tonight.
Way to go, Margie.
Thanks, Margie. Good stuff. Okay. I wanted to show you guys something here. It's kind of cool. This is a first edition big book. It's not first edition, first printing. It's first edition, like maybe 12th printing or something. But it is the first edition. And in the first edition, the doctor's opinion, let's see if we can hold it where everybody can see it. It's not signed. Do you see that?
Now we can.
Verily, truly yours, William Silkworth, MD. It's -- MD. I've heard a couple of reasons of why that might be. One of them I've heard is that he was still alive. That had something to do with the fact that he was still alive when this was published, and then later, after he had died, they published his name with it. I've also heard that it was a controversial opinion at the time, and he wasn't comfortable with having his name on it. So I'm not going to give you guys the answer for that. If you're a big book nerd and you're interested in it, you might do some research on it. And but the interesting thing about that to me is if you're back in the 1930s, if you have a family member who's a bad alcoholic that needs help, and someone says, well, I know some other alcoholics, why don't you send him to them and maybe they can help him? You would have said, hell no. The last thing I'm going to do is send this alcoholic that I love to other alcoholics. We take that for granted today. Today it's almost like Alcoholics Anonymous has had such a huge influence on the treatment of alcoholism, not only with the 12-step program, but also with treatment, other forms of treatment, all kinds of things. Even if another form of treatment doesn't use the 12 steps or the big book, it's still been influenced by this. So today it's almost like it's common knowledge, but back then that's the last thing you would want to do. As a matter of fact, you would want to do just the opposite. Keep our, Uncle so-and-so or whoever, this family member that we love, keep him away from other alcoholics. So when they wrote this book, you can't start the book off by saying, we're alcoholics, you should listen to us. So what they do is they start the book with not just a doctor's opinion, but a doctor who's an expert in the field, and to give this credibility. And then the other thing I want to say, and this is not nothing new, people have already talked about this, I just want to make sure that what he talks about the basis of a rapidly growing fellowship. What is the basis, this rapidly growing fellowship? Well, it says it in a sentence before. It says, as part of his rehabilitation, he commenced to present his conceptions to other alcoholics, impressing upon them that they must do likewise with still others. So how is this rapidly growing fellowship happening? It starts with one guy, with Bill, who and it actually started before Bill. There were some others doing this through the Oxford group, but let's just go back to the beginning of AA with what Bill was doing. He understood what was wrong with him. He found the solution was a spiritual experience. He took the program of action. He had the experience, and then he carried this message to others. And then they did the same and carried this message to others, and it multiplies exponentially into this rapidly growing fellowship. That's what the basis of it is. One alcoholic helping another.
Mm-hmm.
The next up is Chris. I'm working on it, Chris. Okay, you're
Hi.
good.
Great. I'm Chris, and I'm an alcoholic. First time I got to speak in this meeting also. I listened to a tape of Charlie's for the first time about a month ago. And he said something on that tape that made this chapter come more alive to me than it's been in my entire time in Alcoholics Anonymous. He said the primary thing that must happen is that the new guy and the guy that's been around for a while need to be able to actually identify with each other. If that identification, so that they understand they both have the same disease, which will hopefully grasp onto the common solution, we can talk to them until we're blue in the face. They need to be able to identify with us. We need to be identified with them. And when you take a look at this, it's during the third treatment. Bill comes up with the idea of working with somebody else. And what does he do? He goes to another alcoholic as soon as he can, Dr. Bob, and he identifies with Dr. Bob. And he's able to show the strength of belief in what he came to believe to Bob. Then Bob turned around and started going out immediately, okay? That's where it comes from. You know, it's that absolute understanding that I have connected with another alcoholic in a manner that he can take a look at me and understand and believe that I am in fact an alcoholic, and that I do and understand there's a pathway to freedom, and he can have that too. Without that unshakable belief in another alcoholic, it won't work. That's why that becomes important to make that cement work right away.
Thanks, Chris.
Good stuff, Chris.
Next up is Joel J. I think I know Joel J.
7,000 people, Joel, alcoholic, and I'm freaking out here, just really grateful to be here, much less be able to speak. But on the topic here, it talks about the medical estimate of a plan of recovery, and that interested me so much that there's a book called Silkworth that, if you haven't read it or whatever, it's super expensive now. But so Silkworth, the dude had like 38 years he was knowledge based, and he worked with over 40,000 patients, and he only had a 2% success rate until, he had figured out, medically that we had a physical allergy to alcohol and a mental obsession, but he couldn't figure out, why these people weren't staying sober. So, I've read the book, and it's crazy good. Super smart. I mean, he graduated from a little college in 1898 and then Princeton. And so he wasn't an idiot. He had worked with a ton of people. So I do have, personally, I agree with what the last gentleman said. I mean, yeah, we have to have, this thing called alcoholism. But I do have a lot of people that question the validity of everything that we read here. I mean, it's just, it's unbelievable. And thank you, Charlie and Katie, and, for everything that you do for our community and our world. And thank you for saving my life, for God's sake. I'm shaking right now because I see Katie and my love for you.
I know.
And you know it, and Charlie, and all you guys. But I was one of the lucky ones to be sponsored by Charlie for so long. And if you get Charlie, Katie comes with him, or vice versa. I'm not real sure, but thank you guys. I mean, that's my 2 cents on the doctor. He was incredibly smart guy when it comes to this field. So, questioning the validity of his entire career it's ridiculous. So that's my opinion. Thank you, guys. Thank you.
Love you, Joel.
Love you too. Thank you.
Okay. Next up is Ramona.
Hi, everybody. I'm Ramona, and I guess this is the night of the first, because this is the first time I've ever spoken at this meeting as well. And it's only the third time that I've been to this meeting. So I'm really excited about this, and I'm a word and book nerd, so I'm enjoying this. It said that the source of the convincing testimony is with a man who had experience with the suffering of our members. And on the next page, he's going to identify suffering as alcoholic torture. And I think that is significant when you look at how, on question 11, how many did Dr. Silkworth know from his personal experience? Well, he knew scores of cases with whom other methods had failed. So he had these people who were tortured because of their alcoholism. And that's not just sick, that's tortured. And there's three parts of it, is the mind, the body, and the spirit. And then he says, hey guys, they're hopeless. So let's give you over to some experts that I know, because they have seemingly have that. And I'm an educator by an educational diagnostician by trade. And if you have a status, something that's working, you say, hey, let's go try that, because you want to see if it will continue working. That's just the scientific process. So that's why he had to use these people who were recovering and had recovered in his mind. And I'm just completely lost it, because you see, now I think I'm sounding kind of like I know what I'm talking about, but I don't really know what I'm talking about. But there was something else. No. Oh, well, I'll come up with it later. Thank y'all.
Thanks, Ramona. That was good stuff. Congratulations. Okay, next up is David R.
I'm David. I'm an alcoholic. Good to be here. I
David, good to see you.
just wanted to add one little thing where it says to whom it may concern. I was told to cross that out and write to David. Thank you.
I just assume that's what it means, you know. Not that I'm selfish or anything. I just always assume to whom it may concern must be me. Okay, wait, that was David. We want now Marilee. There we go.
Thank you. I'm a first time sharer too. I picked out also, it was shared on, but this has become the basis, but these men and their families. So how much Dr. Silkworth was having to watch these families and they were going through the torture too. And how much that the families became involved with what was going on. It was a solution that they were all on a common basis about. And when it talks about with other methods had failed completely. And so thank you for sharing the history about Dr. Silkworth, that he was working with a lot of people and there was no solution. These alcoholics were being locked up. There was no solution. They were trying so many different things. Today we might call it nutrition, different forms of psychotherapy. It talks about this, I believe, on page 30, but all these things are being tried. And the hopeless state is that these type of alcoholics are not able to recover. Not just nutrition, but, being locked up. And so this certain type of alcoholic would get out of these places with a high resolve and they would drink again. And that's why the big book is so important, because in our rooms, in our meetings, this message needs to be carried with depth and weight, because we are dying still to this day. And when it talks about other methods had failed completely, it talks about losing the power of choice on page 24 and 34, I believe. So when it says, depends upon to the extent to which he has already lost the power of choice, whether such a person can quit upon a non-spiritual basis depends upon the extent to which he has already lost the power of choice, whether he will drink or not. So that's all I got. Thanks for letting me share.
Thanks, good stuff. It says here at the end of what we read, these men may well have a remedy for thousands of such situations. He's kind of making a prediction there. And the definition of remedy is any medicine or application which puts an end to disease and restores health. Sounds pretty good. Next up is, how are we doing on time? Next up is Art. Okay, let me try it again here. Oh, there we go.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Art. I'm an alcoholic, and I'm so glad to be here. I've been to this book study for a couple of months now, and I really appreciate it. I do a book study myself, and I'm picking up a lot of stuff to add to the powerful message that this book study carries, as well as the one that I do. I like what people have said, especially somebody used the word testimony. I won't say his name, but he used the word testimony. And oftentimes there's attempts to change things in the big book. And if there's one thing that I would support if it was to be changed, it would be, instead of an opinion, it would be a testimony. At the time this was written, similar to, Wilson wrote the opening paragraph, but he never, ever writes himself into a corner. He always leaves a wiggle room. And it's a way of being humble and not so exacting that allows people like myself in the rooms. This, and the testimony is contained in the second sentence, or first sentence. It's convincing testimony must come from medical men who have had the experience. And somebody else says something about, it is important that I build a relationship with someone with whom I am trying to work, in order for that person to have the confidence in me that I have something that might help him or her. And that was the first of the 5 C's that we picked up from the Oxford group. That first of the 5 C's is confidence. It is absolutely imperative that that take place before I can do anything else. The letter that is written here was a letter of introduction that we carried with us in those days to try to go out and help other people. And that's why it says in the closing part, it says, you may rely absolutely anything they say about themselves. Well, who in the heck is you? You is me. Me is the one that's carrying this letter that I'm talking to another alcoholic that I'm trying to help. I'm so glad to be here tonight. Time is short, and I'll leave the rest for those best suited to close it.
Glad you're here. Glad you're here, Art. Thanks for sharing. You know, a couple of things I wanted to close with. One is he mentions a word that's already been mentioned twice in here. He mentions the word recovered. He said these men recovered, and these men and 100 others. And you know, of course, in the first on the title page, it says how many thousands of men and women have recovered from alcoholism. It's something that's mentioned a lot in our book, but I love everything that was said tonight. You know, a lot of people say that Dr. Silkworth's letter gave us credibility. You know, that it was a letter of introduction, like Art said. I sobered up with a guy named Pete Foster. He got arrested, and the sheriff told his mother, we're not going to take him to jail tonight. We're going to take him to AA. And she said, what's that? And he said, well, it's a place where people go that drink too much. And she said, well, hell, that's his problem now. Sorry, I just couldn't help myself. In the spirit, okay, so this comes from page 164 of the Big Book, as printed in As-Bill Season on page 331. We realize we know only a little. God can constantly disclose more to you and to us. Ask him in your morning meditation what you can do each day for the man who is still sick. The answers will come if your own house is in order, but you obviously cannot transmit something you haven't got. See to it that your relationship with him is right, and great events will come to pass for you and for countless others. This is the great fact for us. For the newcomer, abandon yourself to God as you understand God. Admit your faults to him and your fellows. Clear away the wreckage of your past. Give freely of what you find, and join us. We shall be with you in the fellowship of the Spirit, and you will surely meet some of us as you trudge the road of happy destiny. May God bless you and keep you until then. I want to thank you for a great meeting. I just so want to tell you how proud I am of you guys for making the transition to Wednesday night. We're so excited to see you all on here, and we look forward to keeping this thing going. I want to congratulate everybody that's celebrating an anniversary and welcome all our visitors. We have a tradition here at PPG of closing with the 7th step prayer for anybody who'd care to join in. And we've kind of gotten in the habit of leaving all the mics open. We like to say it reminds us of what the mind of a newcomer sounds like. So we're going to do the 7th step prayer now all together.
My creator.
My creator.
Creator.
Have all of me. You should have all of me.
Choose to have all of me.
Remove from me. Stands in the way. Strength as I grow to do your thing. None of
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Great meeting, Shirley.
Great meeting, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.